What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel for another low-quality review of Renfield. This is a movie that I was excited for, honestly. I'm a sucker for pretty much any new vampire movie. I feel like ever since Twilight, we've had very few like really legitimately good vampire movies. And ever since I saw that first, behind the scenes photo of Nicolas Cage as Dracula, I was in, man, because I knew for a fact that Nick Cage was going to be awesome for that role. Sure enough, he is. Him as Dracula was enough to get me in the theater, and I feel like that's going to be the same for a lot of people. Starting first things first, he is 1000% the best part of this movie, okay? He just completely steals every scene that he's in. You can tell that he's having so much fun with this role. I'm sorry, I'm just admiring how... I gotta get better lighting for these videos. I mean, I know I'm pasty, but I literally look like Casper the Friendly Goddamn Ghost right now. But anyway, so yeah, Nicolas Cage, he absolutely steals this movie. The problem is that he's not in it as much as I would have liked, and that... I'll just go ahead with my negatives because, unfortunately, I didn't like this movie very much. It was okay, not bad by any means, but it was just, I found the whole thing pretty uninteresting, to be honest with you. I like the basic setup for this movie, which is kind of talking about, narcissists and, abusive, toxic relationships, because you have Renfield, who has been, Dracula's servant for centuries at this point, and he's just, he's fed up. He doesn't want to do it. His sole purpose has been to just get victims for Dracula so he can, feed and stay powerful. And so I like that they kind of took that approach with this movie of, kind of exploring, how people kind of go about dealing with abusive relationships and narcissists, and how narcissists can kind of manipulate us into believing that, we're less than we are, and how they can kind of, influence, how we carry ourselves and kind of what we do with our lives. So I thought, I liked that aspect of this, but unfortunately, this just, like I said, it's just not very interesting. This is very much an action comedy more than it is a horror movie, and I didn't go into this expecting, this to be like a full-blown horror movie, okay? Like, I was aware that, the tone was going to be, more light, and that it wasn't going to really rely as much on horror. There are definitely some standout kind of horror-like sequences in this, for sure. Not really sequences, but just kind of like moments, I'd say, mostly from Nick Cage. For example, obviously for this role, he's in makeup the whole time, and like towards the beginning of this movie, they show him where he's at like low power kind of, and he's kind of almost like a Hellraiser thing, where it's like he's lost a lot of his skin, and so he has to feed to kind of get some of that power back. And you see like really, really cool makeup effects on Nick Cage, and he just, again, he's so good in this role. You can tell he's having so much fun with this. There's a lot of really, really good gore. A lot of it is CGI, which I could have used more like practical gore, but you do get a lot of CGI carnage in this movie, and it's really over the top, but in like a fun way. Like, if you're ever watching, anime, how someone will get their fucking, limbs chopped off, and it's just blood just shoots everywhere like a fire hydrant. It's kind of like that, and, because it's so over the top, I feel like the CGI gore does work in that way. but you'll have instances where, someone will get their, head, or Renfield will rip someone's arms off or their head off, and it's just gore everywhere. It just, like, explodes. But then they cut back to Renfield, and, like, he doesn't have hardly any of it on his shirt or anything. I thought that was funny. Not something that took me out of the movie by any means, but I just thought that was just, funny. It's like, if you're gonna have this much gore, you'd think that they would be like, all right, time to fucking, like, spray you down with fucking red corn syrup, after this scene. But as far as what didn't work for me, this movie kind of has two, like, ongoing, like, plot lines. You have the Renfield and Dracula stuff, which is by far the most interesting part of this movie, and I think that's the reason why we're here. Like, that's the reason why people showed up for this movie. But then you have this whole, like, other kind of side plot with Awkwafina, who plays a cop who, her father died, and so she works as, like, a traffic cop, but she wants to do more. She wants to get out into the action and, kind of do more. And, so you have those two different storylines in this movie, and they do kind of converge towards the end. But again, it's like Nick Cage is so good in this role, and I was so much more interested in the Renfield, like, plot, that, every time it would cut back to Awkwafina and the cops, it just, like, the movie grinds to a halt, and you're just like, all right, like, can we get back to Nicolas Cage, please? And it doesn't help that I'm really not a huge fan of Awkwafina. I don't think she's bad by any means, She has some funny moments, but a lot of the times, I felt the same way about her in Shang-Chi. She just comes across as kind of annoying to me. A lot of the times, she did have a couple of funny lines, but overall, I thought that, a lot of her jokes kind of fell flat, and that's not just a knock on her, because that's another big problem with this movie. It relies a lot on the comedy, but I don't think much of any of it landed. Like, I think I only laughed, like, a couple of times, and, that was just kind of like a, like, or just like an exhale, for any little, like, humorous bits in there. But, I think this is definitely the best thing I've seen Awkwafina in, but I don't, again, like, she didn't really leave much of an impression. I'm just not really a big fan of hers. Maybe, I definitely think she's talented. I think that in a better movie, I probably would have enjoyed her more, but she's fine. Ben Schwartz as the villain in this movie is just over the top and loudmouthed, and he's fine too. I like Nick Cage. You can tell that he's really having fun with this role, and I think that definitely comes through in his performance. And it's odd seeing Ben Schwartz as a bad guy, because I don't, like, there's nothing intimidating about that guy, and I just don't see him as the villain type, but I thought he did fine for, what he was given in this movie and what the movie called for. He's just over the top, chewing the scenery. Nicholas Hoult, too, he's a guy that I've enjoyed in movies ever since I saw him as Beast in X-Men, and, he does good, too. I think, unfortunately, he's kind of, like, outshined by Nick Cage. I think Nick Cage is just on such a different level than everybody else in this movie that, everybody almost seems dull by comparison. But I mean, he's good, he's charming, he's charismatic, he has some funny lines, for sure. I definitely want to see Nicholas Hoult do more. I know, I actually read something where he said he lost out on the Batman role, which I'm I'm not sure if I see him as Batman, but you know, I do want to see him in, you know, some bigger movies, for sure. Just in more stuff. I saw him in The Menu last year with Anya Taylor-Joy. He was really good in that. Um, but yeah, this movie just didn't really do it for me. Like, again, I wasn't really into the story itself. I thought kind of, you know, like I said, kind of framing this as like, you know, how people deal with narcissists and abusive relationships. I thought that was really interesting and clever for this movie. You know, the set design in some parts is also really, really good. Like it shows Dracula's like lair, which is in this like abandoned hospital. I thought that set was really, really cool. Just like the lighting, the atmosphere, everything about that I thought was really, really solid. You know, there's a lot of action in this movie, and there's a lot of really, really fun gory kills. Like I said, the gore. I love, you know, my horror movies. I love gory movies. So this gave me that, for sure. But it just, overall, it's a pretty forgettable movie. I definitely wouldn't, like, go out to theaters to see this. I would definitely wait until it's at home, until it's on Amazon Prime or wherever you'll be able to stream this movie. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of my thoughts. It's, you know, it's okay. Like, I didn't hate it, but when I left the theater, I was just kind of like, okay, you know, it just didn't, they leaned so much into the comedy of this movie, and a lot of it was just not very funny in my opinion, so it kind of like fell flat on its face, I thought. But again, Nick Cage is awesome, and this movie definitely does have standout moments, but overall, I just thought the plot was kind of uninteresting, and it just didn't really do it for me. So those are my thoughts on Renfield. Let me know if you guys, well, I gotta remember, like 3 people are probably watching this video. So if you watched this and you also watched Renfield and you have any thoughts, comment down below. Let me know if you enjoyed it a little bit more than me. I'll definitely be doing a review of Evil Dead Rise, which comes out tomorrow, which I'm so fucking excited about. So stay tuned for that. I might be checking out Air, Ben Affleck's Air, this weekend as well. But I'm not sure about that one yet. But definitely be on the lookout for an Evil Dead Rise review. And until then, I'll see you guys later. Bye.